Rock and roll is described by some Christian fundamentalists as being the devil's music. But why is that? When we look at artists such as Marilyn Manson or Christian Death or Deicide, it's not difficult to see why, but these artists aren't really the focus of this video. With this video, my focus is rather on rock music that doesn't make any explicit criticisms of or deliberate attempts to offend Christianity, yet still manages to get under the craw of the fundamentalists. Obviously not all Christians are opposed to rock and roll, else we wouldn't have Christian rock music, but that is going to be more the concern of my follow-up video. In this video, I aim to discuss the reasons why some Christian fundamentalists oppose all rock music, be it satanic, Christian or secular. About 8 years ago, I decided to finally find out what all the fuss was about with rock and roll and why it was labelled the devil's music. This label is perhaps a backhanded compliment to some artists, but to many it's perhaps a bit offensive. One of the most outspoken opponents of rock music was the fundamentalist ministry known as Dial the Truth. I decided to give their website a look. Dial the Truth have an absolute wealth of articles on the subject of rock music. Sifting through essay after essay, I was able to find the core points. 1. Rock music features drums. Drums are pagan. It is the belief of certain fundamentalists that because pagans used drum rhythms to supposedly summon various spirits, that therefore the use of drums in rock music ultimately makes it pagan. The only instrument allowed for keeping time, according to the Bible, is the tambourine. Therefore, music featuring drums is satanic, given as Christian fundamentalists believe anything that isn't Christian is automatically satanic. Rock music is the offspring of jazz and blues. Jazz and blues are African American in origin. African Americans are African in origin. Therefore, the influence of voodoo rhythms can be heard in rock and roll. This segues into the next point. 2. Rock music is worldly. Christians aren't supposed to be of the world, though they do have to live in it, with all its worldly medicine and worldly technology and worldly vehicles. But let's not get sidetracked. As far as fundamentalists are concerned, rock music has worldly origins, ergo it is not for Christians, ergo it is of the devil. They of course emphasise the origins of rock and roll in seedy bars and nightclubs, bringing us to the next point. 3. Rock and roll means sex. Yep, that's right. Whenever you hear the phrase sex, drugs and rock and roll, it's actually sex, drugs and sex, because rock and roll is an old African American slang term for sex. As we all know, sex is a big no-no in Christian fundamentalism unless it's done strictly within the confines of marriage, strictly involves one man and one woman, doesn't involve any unorthodox positions, and is done for the purposes of populating our already heavily populated planet. So the fundamentalist objection to rock music isn't just because they're a bunch of old farts, though in many cases I think that helps. Now, to those of us who are atheist, agnostic, or even deist or pantheist, this is all neither here nor there. We don't believe in Satan, so it's of no concern whether or not people who do think they know what kind of music he is into. But what about people who do consider themselves Christian? The subject of Christian rock music and Christian contemporary music in general is something I aim to discuss in The Devil's Music Part 2, Why God Didn't Give Rock and Roll to You.